So I have to first just really thank Dr. Pat for inviting me back and for giving me an honor to also speak my truth. I know I've been singing for years, and I started speaking in 2008, and I just could not stop running my mouth. So I'm so glad and so grateful to be back in Calgary. It seems like the two times that I've been here, you all have ordered some very wintry weather for me. So I fly in on Friday and I get here and it's, I think, 15 degrees.
Celsius, Fahrenheit.
15 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
That was cold. From Nashville, Tennessee. I'm originally from Nashville, and I grew up in a small community called Lake Providence. The last 12 years I've spent in Los Angeles, and I've been under the tutelage and under the ministries of Dr. Michael Beckwith, and under the musicianship of Ricky Byers Beckwith. So this time last year, actually September of last year, I knew it was time to leave Los Angeles. And so I went into meditation, and all I heard was, it's time to go. Pack your buggy, and let's go back to New York. So I get on the road, and I'm heading back to New York, and my sister calls, and she says, well, we're selling the house that Mommy and Daddy lived in, the last house. And I said, well, I'm going to stop in Nashville. That means a whole lot. That house was on the parcel of land that my father grew up on. My beloved grandmother, who taught me hymns and spirituals, her house was adjacent to it. So I wanted to go home and be a part of this. This is all that there's left. My father transitioned in 2013. My mother now lives in Atlanta near my sister, and my brother lives in an assisted living facility in Nashville. So this is it. And so I go and I have about what I think is a week, end up being 3 weeks in this house. There's nothing in it but a bedroom, my mother's bedroom. All of the other rooms are empty. And so I go into meditation, and all I hear is, I want you to walk the rooms of the house. It's okay. And my ancestors start speaking to me, the guides, the angels. Because I want to go back to New York. I'm ready to go back to Broadway, but I don't have a show. I'm going on faith. So I need to hear a message. Now, meanwhile, I've written this curriculum on emotional literacy and learning. My relationship with my father has taught me how to navigate through the pain, the disappointment of those types of relationships. So something says, why don't you call your friends and tell them about your presentation, your curriculum, your program? And I called buddies that I played high school football with. And one happens to be the student coordinator for the Nashville public school system. So I go in and I'm talking to him, and I said, well, I have this curriculum. And I said, I think it would be a great benefit to any youth. I said, it's been a great benefit to me. And he gets on the phone, and he calls a gentleman, and he hangs up and he says, I have a meeting for you next week. It's with the principal of one of the elementary schools here in Nashville. I said, okay, I'll go. I get there, the principal says, well, heard all about your program, so I prepared. He says, I have 14 third and fourth grade young men. I want you to meet them. I said, oh, goody. So I walk into the room, and yes, 8 and 9-year-olds, they're running around the room. He's trying to talk. I can't hear a word he's saying. They're coming up, pulling on my jacket and screaming out. And I'm trying to talk to him and look at them. And all I hear is, this is where you're supposed to be. Now in my head I'm thinking, but I'm supposed to be going back to New York and being on Broadway and singing, ah, da, 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 da. This is where you're supposed to be. take another swift look around the room. And I look up just to make sure I'm not hearing things. This is where I'm supposed to be? Yes, this is where you're supposed to be. And in that moment, I said yes. I'm familiar with the yes. I've said yes so many times. The program starts. They say, okay, Mr. Holt, the public school system is such that we cannot pay you until we find that your program is making some kind of development. What do I hear? This is where you're supposed to be. So I said, okay, yes. For 3 months, no pay. So I go in and my staple is mindfulness. So we circle up on the floor. I said, okay, repeat after me and do as I say, and I cross my legs and I start to breathe. And they start to breathe too. And I said, if you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes and come to center. And I look around, and they're all like this. And there's one gentleman who is repeating after me, and he's like this. 2 weeks later, the principal comes to me and he says, what are you doing in class? I have to come in for the hour that you're teaching them, because they're coming to me and saying, Mr. Holt is teaching us how to be quiet. He's teaching us how to stand in our power. And he's teaching us balance. And that when we get upset, we don't have to sock the other person. We can go and tell the teacher. And he looks at me and he says, we need this. We need you. Will you stay? Yes. He said, we'll pay you the last 6 weeks. I said, oh, goody, I need the money. Then they come to me and they say, we would love to invite you back for 2017-2018 school year. I said, okay. I'm going to trust that the yes that I have stepped into, because this is stepping into that yes, that within inside of that yes is every single thing that I need to fulfill this assignment. Because I don't know how to pull all of this together. This wasn't my idea. I'm supposed to be back on the Great White Way on Broadway right now. But I said yes. So one day, this student comes up to me, and he's a 4th grader, and he grabs my arm and he says, Mr. Holt, will you come and see what I've created? And I look into his eyes, and in a split second, I go back to my childhood. And I go back to that 6 and 7-year-old where I was grabbing my father's pant leg. Daddy, will you come out and play ball with me? And my father would whisk my hand away. Little boys don't go around touching people, he would say. You talk too much. I don't have time to play with you. This is the weekend. I need to go be with my friends. My life began to unfold in a very interesting way, because when I was 8 and 9 years old, I had found what I was desiring to teach these young men. I had found it, because every time I would go and ask my dad if he would do something with me, it was the same response. No, stop touching me. Little boys are seen and not heard. Maybe you all can attest to some of that. And by the time I was 8 and 9 years old, I'd come up with it. I got it. Something's wrong with me. Let me change it. Let me shift it and step back from my creative self. The creation that came with me, that creative genius that came with me here on the planet. And so I fashioned a life after what I thought everybody thought Charles should be. See, I grew up amongst a lot of kids, a lot of boys. Everybody played contact sports. But you'd be really popular if you played football. So I jumped in. I jumped into that stream. And I became this celebrated football player. This will do it. This will get his attention. This will affirm me. This will cause my father to validate me. After all, he does want me to be that little boy. So I spent my life trying to get that. I'm proud of you, son. I love you, son. All of my life, I did. I went to college on football scholarship. Graduated college. Started working for IBM, marketing representative. And after all of those years of not getting that affirmation, I became an overachiever. If I could just get to the next thing, the next achievement, my father will finally say, that's my son, and I'm proud of him. Proud of you, son. Daddy loves you. Didn't happen. Didn't happen the way that I wanted it to. And I remember going home. I was living in Memphis, which is about 3 hours west of Nashville, and I thought, I'm now on my own. I have my own job. I'm out taking full responsibility for my life, and I know my father likes that. So I went home and I said, Daddy, guess what? I got a job with IBM. Got my own apartment, my own car. I'm on my way. And he looks at me and he says, that's nice. On the way back to Memphis, there was this sign, this billboard. It said, Jesus loves you. You know, in the South, you'll find all kind of Jesus stuff. It's just everywhere. And I pulled over to the side of the road and I said, I don't care if Jesus loves me. I want my daddy to care about me. Years unfolded. I left IBM. Wasn't my strong suit. But every chance I got, I tried my best to get that affirmation. Just to have someone take a look at what I was creating. And that was my daddy. So I leave and I go to New York. I leave the South. It's a big thing. Never lived outside of the South. I'm way away from my family, and I thought when I arrived on 87th between Central Park West and Columbus Avenue, I'm home, and I'm far away from him. A month later, I got the national tour of Jesus Christ Superstar. Ted Neely and Carl Anderson. Christ, you know I love you. Did you see? You know the songs of Tell Me I'm Saved, right? And so we're touring the country. We're leaving Casper, Wyoming, and we're going all the way across to Long Beach, California. We're on a sleeper bus. 2 hours of sleep, I get up and I start talking to the driver. We're rolling right along. All of a sudden, something whizzes by the bus, and I say, catch up to that. What was that? What was that? And he looks at me and he says, I think it was a tumbleweed, but I'm not sure. We'll catch up to it. So, in fact, it was a tumbleweed. We continue our conversation, and something is coming toward the bus now. I see it out of my right periphery, and I take a swift look. And I come full focus, and it's the face of my father. A couple of hours later, we stopped for breakfast. There's a couple standing right in front of me. The mother asked the child, what would you like for breakfast? I didn't hear the child's voice. I heard my father's voice. I run into the men's room, and I say, why are you following me? You didn't didn't want to be around me then, why are you here with me now? Go away. But he wouldn't. I thought I had left all of that hurt, that pain, that disappointment, the feeling of abandonment. I thought I had left that in Nashville. Moved to the big city. I'm on tour now. The tour ends January 1997, and I'm on my bed, the edge of my bed. I'm in Harlem. And I hear a voice say, call him. Call him now. I pick up the phone and I call. My mother answers the phone. I said, Mommy, is Daddy there? She says, he's right here. I said, I need to speak with him. I knew what this was about. He answers the phone. My father answers and speaks in the same tone. Hello. I said, Daddy. And in that moment, all the courage that I had mustered up, it left. And I said, Daddy, do you remember when I was 5 years old and I asked you to come out to play with me and you wouldn't? And that continued. You never came to see me play football until my junior year in high school. You told me I was going to be nothing. I was a straight A student. Do you remember any of that? And my father says, in his southern lilt, I'm sorry, but I think you got the wrong person because I don't remember none of that. At that moment, I hear the voice, say it. Tell him. And I took a deep breath and I said, Daddy, I forgive you. Silence. Well, that angered me. So I went down the other laundry list. And in the midst of that, everything that I had ever thought about my father came to the forefront of my attention. And I said, Daddy, I love you. I always have. I wanted to be just like you. And I'll always love you. Silence. And I hung up the phone. I cried myself to sleep. I woke up at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and I hear a voice that says, congratulations. I said, congratulations for what? He didn't respond. He said nothing. I said, congratulations, you just stepped into your sacred covenant with yourself. It wasn't for him anyway. It was for you. From that day forward, every chance I got, I told my daddy, Daddy, I love you. And his response was the same. Mm-hmm. From 1997 until 2009, I said it, and each time I would say it, a little bit of the shaving of expectancy would be washed off. I still wanted to hear it from him. I needed to hear it from him. But if I didn't get it, I'd still revel in the fact that I loved my daddy. Well, in 2009, my father was diagnosed with end-stage renal disease. He was on dialysis. So I went home. I was touring the churches. Decided I'll just tour the churches in the Southeast so I can help my mother fray the responsibility of getting my father up at 4 o'clock in the morning and wheeling him out to go to a dialysis until 11 in the morning. And he comes in. He's now frail. The man that I knew that stood this tall is now about this tall. He's been over, he's shuffling to his room. And I'm pushing him along. And he gets up, turns towards the table to sit down to eat. And he looks at me and he says, "Oh, my baby's home. Daddy loves you." Well, time stops. Because immediately that side of me that wanted to hear that for so many years, it pops up again. Where was that when I needed it? When I was 5 years old, I was coursing, trying to get your attention. Daddy, will you just come out and play with me? Will you tell me that I'm important? At 13, 14, 15 years old, I was pleading inside. If you just say I'm proud of you, it would do it. And then I heard the other voice. What about the sacred covenant? He's ready now. Are you? And I looked at my father. And I took a deep breath. And I said, oh, Daddy, I love you too. It was hard. Still that part of me that wanted to hang on. Even during that entire tirade of years of forgiveness, it was still there. But I said, yes. The last 4 years of my father's life, he would sit down and tell me all about who he was. Growing up in the South, dark-skinned, tall. To the war he went, came back. And then I was the baby by over a decade. And he says, you were something. You were different. And under all that talk, my father would chuckle every now and then. And I would hear it. I would hear his life story. Because he too had been through that. My father transitioned in February of 2013. The first time I had ever seen my father cry was Thanksgiving of 2012. And I was there the 5 days in the palliative ward, talking to him in another realm, because I believe in that. Can go into meditation and talk. And I said, so Daddy, tell me this. What was this all about? He said, we had a good relationship. It wasn't what you wanted. It wasn't what I expected. It was tumultuous emotionally, I know. But I have to tell you 2 things. One is that I loved you. Couldn't tell you how you wanted me to tell you. I couldn't tell you that I was proud of you. He said, son, nobody ever told me. My daddy never told me that he was proud of me or that he loved me. But he did, and I loved you. He said, and 2, son, I did my best. That's all I needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear. And he says, I want you to understand that the relationship that we had was good in indicating how we were supposed to move about. It was tough, but I want you to take everything that you've learned from it and keep the legacy going and give it back to those students, those young men and women who struggle with those same types of relationships. So in that moment, I understand that. Now I come back to this young man. He's 9 years old. Mr. Holt, Mr. Holt. And I wake up and I say, yes. He said, I think you would like what I've created. Will you come and see it? And I take a break and I breathe and I said, yes, I would love to. There are no mistakes. I'm here to tell you. Inside of that forgiveness is every single thing that sets us up. Would I like to be back on Broadway? Absolutely. Will I be back on Broadway? Yes, I will. But now, this is my assignment. This, Spirit spoke to me and said, this is where you're supposed to be. They are who needs you right now. I invite you now to take a breath and find that place. Find it that's beckoning you to get under the rock. Get under the rock to find out, what is this all about? Speak to me, because I don't understand it. It hurts. but it's trying to get my attention because there's work for me to do now. And in the United States, I know that you've heard, we've got work to do. And perhaps people are saying, why? Why is this? And if nothing else, it's to wake us up. Let's get under the rock. Because I tell you, whenever I look at the TV, whenever I hear, it's painful. And then I ask why, and something says, get under the rock. You're on the planet for a reason right now. Let's take a breath together and just be grateful in this moment that we're here. That every situation, circumstance, and condition has come into our life to be the next stepping stone and into our greater yet to be. It's not here to beat us up. It's not here to throw us down. It's here so that we can step on it and step through it. But it's calling us to say yes. Whatever it is, don't have all the details, God, but I say yes. And I trust that inside of that yes is every single thing I need to fulfill the sacred assignment that I have been called to reveal and demonstrate now. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your listening.